Propulsion continues to be normal.
Our chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers can fly! Yes!
Echo down to nominal.
Flight downside, SCE off. Bring in, SCE off.
Yikes. You bet.
Concur.
We don't need any more of these.
Good morning, space fans. Welcome to another NASA Spaceflight live stream. You're looking at a Falcon 9 rocket on Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, getting ready to loft, 56 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit. I'm Jack Beyer with NASA Spaceflight, and as always, we are bringing you a feed of this launch. Joining me on today's broadcast is Mr. Alejandro Alcantara Romero. I butchered your name. I'm sorry, Alex, but how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. I don't know what to say, but I really wish these launches would occur a little bit easier times for us all. It's a good time here in Europe, but I know for you guys out there in the States, it's quite late or early, depending on the side of the bed that you are.
Yes, indeed. And rolled out to the launch site and providing this feed is Mr. Thomas Burkhart. Thomas, thanks for joining us this morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks, Jack. And it's a bit of a wet morning, very early morning here at the Space Coast. Some light rain in the area and a lot of clouds. However, the view of the pad has cleared up a little. We've got a pretty decent view of Slick 40 out there. And as far as we can tell, no weather rules in violation or anything. SpaceX just confirmed a little bit ago. They're still on track for a liftoff at 4:32 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 9:32 UTC. And that weather remained 70% chance of acceptable conditions at liftoff. So we'll give you update in case that changes. But so far, it looks like they're on track for a launch this morning.
Excellent. Well, that's what we like to hear. Sorry it's not nicer conditions for you out there, but at least we are at 70% chance of go. Now, I'm sure everyone watching right now already knows this, but in case you're a new viewer, welcome. And if you have any questions, just type at NASASpaceflight into chat. We will see your question pop up in some software that Michael wrote, and we will be able to answer it. So, right off the bat, I'm just going to get this one out of the way. The 4 towers are lightning towers, and Nicholas is asking which tower takes off and which way do the flames come out. Flames come out the bottom, and the tower there in the middle is the one that takes off. There, we got that out of the way. We did it, everybody. We can pat ourselves on the back, and we can move on to other questions. But while we get some questions filtering in, who wants to give us an overview on this launch?
I can give us a start really quick. This is another Starlink mission, so it's in support of SpaceX's satellite internet constellation. The mission designation for tonight's flight, or this morning's flight, is Group 5-2. It is the second such mission to Group 5. And as we talked about a little bit more on the first Group 5 mission, this is actually in support of the Starlink Gen 2 constellation, the second generation Starlink constellation. The Group 5 does not correlate with the fifth shell of the first generation. It's going to the wrong inclination for that. So based on all of the paperwork that goes along with SpaceX planning these constellations, this is to Gen 2. However, based on the number of satellites on board, and also based on some other FCC documentation that basically said SpaceX may begin populating the second generation constellation with satellites that are also used in the first generation rather than the scaled up Starship satellites. The satellites on board are likely identical or near identical to all of the ones launched on other missions to Group 4, Group 2, some of the other groups that we've seen fly recently. They're that version 1.5 satellite that has some upgrades over the first couple batches of satellites, but they're not the upscale satellites that take full advantage of the Starship payload bay. Those will, of course, only launch on Starship. There's also been talk of a subscale version of those satellites that could fit in Falcon 9 and have less satellites per launch. But today's flight is 56 satellites on board. So these are the pretty standard sized Starlink satellites on board. It's actually 2 extra satellites compared to some other Starlink flights, and that is likely due to the slightly lower inclination of this flight. It's going to a 43-degree inclination. A lot of the Starlink flights end up going to about 50 or 55, or I think it's technically 54-degree inclination. So slightly lower inclination, and basically, as this is only the second flight to this group, some combination of the inclination change and the maybe refining the trajectory after that first flight or something like that. I don't know. Alex, it's interesting to hear your thoughts, how they squeaked out 2 more satellites of performance. But either way, that's the rundown on today's flight, dropping off 56 satellites into low Earth orbit. Alex, any insight into the 2 extra satellites on board?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, I mean, these satellites are about 300 kilograms each. So they have added 600 kilograms to the performance of Falcon 9. And I really haven't done the math, to be honest. But it doesn't seem to me that the change of going from 53 to 43, like that 10-degree inclination change, actually does that much in terms of performance.
Right.
But I'm not fully sure as well because, again, I haven't really done the math. And also, I was kind of thinking that they did a similar launch last month, right? Starting 5-1 instead of being 5-2, it was 5-1. It was the same kind of inclination, orbit, and things like that. So why didn't they do that, right? On that mission, why wait until now? And so that's another question as well. Might be that they just were basically waiting for launching that mission and then make sure that it actually can launch what it needs to launch into that orbit. That could also be a reason there. But they're upgrading Falcon 9, even though its design is frozen and whatnot, but they can still change stuff on their own missions. Like these Starlink missions, they have been tweaking the load times of the propellant on the vehicle and the temperature, just to get a little bit more performance and be able to add a few more satellites on each launch. And so it might be as well that they have increased a little bit the performance of Falcon 9.
Pretty nifty. You think you've seen everything, and then SpaceX does something a little different. Let's see here. Thank you right off the bat to Ryan Knight for the support there. They say, thanks, y'all, for being crazy enough to stream at this hour. Well, thank you, Ryan, for acknowledging that. And for the support. Ian Tibbets, thank you for the $10 dues. And Westy the Third, thank you for the curly L's, saying NSF Coffee Fun. Thank you, Westy. All right, so we got some good... Go ahead.
Oh, I just heard. I'm always listening at the countdown loops, and so they just called the go for propellant load, which should happen in about 1 minute.
Excellent.
All right, that's what we want to hear. We do have some questions filtering in right off the bat. I gotta stop saying right off the bat. Wesley Hale says, "Spill the tea on the new intro. Is it not done yet?" No, it's not done yet. That's my fault. Michael can yell at me about it later. Win Hoy, thank you for the question here. They're saying, is this the heaviest attempted drone ship flight? Alex?
I mean, in terms of the payload that it is carrying, yes, because it's probably about a little bit over 17 tons to orbit. Again, it's a different orbit than we've grown accustomed to with all those group 4 launches. But in terms of the actual throw capability, it's hard to gauge because there's GTO missions where they don't have to go into these inclined orbits when they go into low Earth orbit first, and so those actually go lower inclination first when they go into a parking orbit, and then they throw the whole thing into geostationary transfer orbit and all of that. Those might actually be more mass into that parking orbit than these launches, but we really don't know because at the end of the day, it's all SpaceX proprietary stuff, and so they actually know the numbers, but we don't. But one could guess that it is probably in the same ballpark as well. So yes, in terms of the amount of payload that it is carrying, yes, it is likely the heaviest attempted ASTS flight. Yep. And I just
Neat.
heard the launch shuttle sequence has started, so the propeller load has begun.
Excellent. Let's see here. Here's one for Thomas. Sebastian Durberg says Cape Canaveral Space Force Station and the Kennedy Space Center. One time you talk about the Cape and the other time Kennedy. What's the difference? Greetings from the Netherlands. Thomas, what's going on with Cape Canaveral versus Kennedy Space Center? Is this like a squares and rectangles situation?
No, they are actually pretty separate from one another. So the general area that most people just, generally refer to as Cape Canaveral is actually split into two halves. There's the northern part that is owned and operated by NASA, and that's the Kennedy Space Center. The only launch sites included within the Kennedy Space Center are launch complexes 39A and 39B. In theory, there's also Launch Complex 48, which is a so far unused kind of bare concrete pad intended for some of the small side launchers that need pretty minimal infrastructure and things like that. I believe that also falls on KC grounds, but the only active launch sites are 39A, where SpaceX launches Falcon 9s and Falcon Heavy, Starship in the future, as well as 39B, which is of course the home of SLS. All of the other launch pads, including Slick 40, which is what's being used tonight or this morning, is on the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station from Space Launch Complex 41, which is the United Launch Alliance Atlas V and soon Vulcan launch pad, all the way south to Slick 46, which was most recently used by Astra and Rocket 3. All of those launch pads fall within the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and that side of the range is owned and operated by the U.S. Space Force. It used to be Cape Canaveral Air Force Station before the Space Force was created. Even the KSC assets are still partially overseen by the Space Force. The Space Force still does all of the weather tracking, and they handle a lot of the range assets, even when the launch is from KSC. But it's just kind of a differentiation between the primarily military side and the civilian side of Cape Canaveral. Military launches do still happen from KSC. Obviously, Falcon Heavy launched a national security payload recently from 39, and civilian launches still happen from the Space Force side. Starlink is for all intents and purposes, a civilian mission launching from the Space Force side. But there are also lots of other military facilities over on the Space Force side, and it's kind of, in some ways, it eases logistics to let the civilian workforce for NASA get into Kennedy Space Center and things like that. So it's not a huge deal as far as launch operations go, just a matter of who's in charge of the various areas here at the Cape, because it's a pretty big area.
Makes sense. Barney in chat says, I keep hearing KFC. Someone's hungry. Let's see here. Oh, I'm told. Ooh, breaking. There's a new feature that we have in our merch store. If you in checkout, you can type in a message that will show up in our panel here, and we can show that on stream. It's in beta, so it may or may not work. You should give it a try. Tell us if it works. But there's a little box you can type a message into if you purchase something in the store. And speaking of purchasing something in the store, we have the launch, entry, and landing collection. And I'm told if you type NSF message, all caps, NSF, that's Nancy Sigma Freud message, into the little discount code box, you get 20% off of launch, entry, landing designs. It's a cool design.
Not on the message thing, on the code.
Yes, correct. If you type it into the new message box that I just told you about, it will just show up on stream, which would be helpful for other people. But yeah, there's the code. Get 20% off, and yeah, try out that new feature. See if it works. It is in beta. I do want to stress it is in beta. Michael literally just coded that up. It's hot off the. I guess it wouldn't be hot off a press. Hot off
Hot off the keyboard.
Sure, let's go with that. Hot off the code. No, we'll workshop it. We'll workshop it. We'll come back to it. But yeah, let's do some more viewer questions here. Nicholas
We do get just jumping. We do get some visual indications now of prop load. Like Alex said, it's been underway now, and you're starting to see some vapors form outside the rocket as the very scorched booster becomes white again because of the frost forming.
Excellent. Nicholas is asking, are Starlink launch windows instantaneous?
Kind of. Well, once they start propellant loading, then they are targeting at that point a instantaneous window because of the condensed propellant load timeline. They don't have the ability to adjust the T0 significantly once fueling starts. However, they are often multiple T0s they can target with a range. In fact, today's flight was originally intended for 4:22 a.m. Eastern, and they moved it 10 minutes, which is probably the maximum. Like, I think in the past we've seen them move it as much as 10 minutes before propellant load starts, as they just fine tune exactly how they want to insert into the orbital plane they're targeting. But when you are targeting a specific plane relative to the Earth, that gives you an instantaneous launch window, just like if you're targeting the International Space Station. Even though these satellites aren't going to rendezvous with another spacecraft in orbit, they still need to be at a specific point in orbit relative to the other Starlink satellites. And so effectively, you're still targeting one specific orbital plane for this launch. But they can also have multiple T0 available to them because the satellites can be functional in a couple different orbital planes, especially early on when you're deploying the first couple of batches of satellites to a new group. So this is only the second mission to Group 5. They likely have some flexibility, and SpaceX even said if something were to come up during this countdown, I think they have another opportunity in about 2 hours for a different launch plane. So they do have some other T0s they can target if they want to adjust that. So in that sense, it's not necessarily instantaneous. But right now, they are targeting an instantaneous window at 4:32 that can't move by a few minutes here or there. At this point, they'd have to wait for a new plane, which is separated, and it's almost a different launch window at that point.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
there's how to explain this? SpaceX usually sends these data on where the Starlink satellites are going to be located in orbit prior to launch, like when they actually want to launch and where are they going to be for other operators to be able to basically arrange their stuff around the Starlink satellites, because there's many of them up there, right? And there's a page where it's in communication with the SpaceX to do all this stuff. It's Celestrak. There's other pages as well, similarly. And apparently SpaceX communicated to them that this changed, those 10 minutes that they changed the time of the launch to 4:32 is actually to optimize orbit race and get the satellites on station, okay, on orbit, on the orbit that they want, faster. So it apparently is a little bit of tweaking there to get them faster into that final orbit.
Got it. Everett Clark, thank you so much for becoming a PadRat member. Joe Henderson, thank you for the support. Laura Emerson, thank you for the support. The NSF Coffee Fund there, thank you for that. Kevin, thank you so much. Ooh, I think this is our first one. This is a merch order message. Well, thank you for getting some merch, Kevin. They say, I just wanted to see if it worked and get a shirt. Why do you guys sound tired? Do we sound tired? Do I need to try harder to not sound... Oh, look, and it popped up right there. Look at that. Look at it go. Good job, Michael. We sound tired because it's early in the morning, and I apologize for that. I will try and sound more chipper. Hi, I'm sounding chipper. Undo Modern Ops Clan is asking, where do the name of the drone ships come from? That's from a book series, right?
Yeah,
the
it's from
Culture series?
The Culture series is a sci-fi series that all three drone ship names come from. Yep.
Let's see here. Yeah, I think like all the ships in that book series are like sentient beings or something. I've never read them. Can you tell? But yeah, they all have wacky names, so that's where the names come from.
I will also report from here at the launch site that the clouds seem to do have a couple breaks in them. It's not completely overcast anymore. Like I can see the pad spotlights shining up, obviously towards the rocket, but then continuing up towards the clouds. And there is it looks like the cloud deck isn't as thick as it looked at the beginning of the countdown. So hopefully visibility is going to continue improving a bit here.
Hope so. Let's see. Here's one for Alex. Wesley Hale is asking, how much higher is the second orbital shell? They've been launching fewer satellites into the lower shell. How can they launch so many into the higher shell?
Higher shell. I think they're probably thinking that this is going higher or something. Or
Yeah,
like
this
the... Yeah, go ahead.
there are like all the different shells are different inclinations and slightly different altitudes, but this mission is going to a pretty similar altitude to most of the previous groups. This is still going. It's what
Yeah.
the operational orbit is. Is it 550 Alex kilometers?
What's an Alex kilometer?
For this one, hold on, because I don't have the thing in front of me. I'm deeply sorry
Or
about
did I
that.
just parrot the
It
OneWeb
is
number?
530 kilometers is
Oh
the
no, okay, I was
operational
close.
altitude. But, one thing is the operational altitude, which for the other one, I think it was 540, 550. Geez. I
Pretty
need to have
close.
these numbers in front of me because there's so many things going on. So forgive me if I don't know every single number. That's why there's a spreadsheets and all of that. But I don't have it right in front of me. But yeah, the other one is a little bit higher. But still, the differences in the overall in the overall planes and like the orbital heights and things like that, those are for the operational orbit, which these satellites won't arrive to until like many weeks from now. The Falcon 9 actually puts them in a very similar orbit in terms of the altitudes, like the perigee and apogee and things like that, compared to Group 4 launches, at least some of the most recent ones that we've seen. It's only the inclination that is changing basically, so it's not a huge difference in that sense. Could be that some of these will have maybe affected the performance. I don't know, but it hasn't really changed in terms of the recent other Group 4 launches to 53-degree inclination.
That makes sense. I don't know if I'm supposed to do this. Isn't that a fun way to start something you're about to say live on stream to however many thousand people? I don't know if I'm supposed to do this, but Joey Hummel, I'm sorry, buddy. I just got a DM from Joey. I'm not going to go into it, but Joey is thanking us for our streams and for helping him to feel a little bit better. So hang in there, man. I hope things get better for you. Let's see here. Steve Fitzpatrick is asking, how many Starlink are in orbit all together now?
Oh gosh. If I check the article really quick, it'll tell me. And it'll be slightly delayed because obviously the numbers don't get updated in real time. But approximately consists of 3,425 satellites in orbit, including those already in the operational orbits and those still maneuvering or those even possibly being retired. About 3,400, and after today's flight, it'll raise obviously another 56.
Total launched is 3,717. But obviously, there's been some of them that have re-entered, so
yes,
the ones in orbit are a little bit less.
Are we witnessing the famous T-minus 20-minute event right now?
I believe so.
I believe that's what that is. That is a on-time indicator that they have likely just finished RP1 kerosene loading into the upper stage, and so they're purging the lines on the transporter erector. They're going to get ready to load liquid oxygen into that upper stage after a couple of minutes of purge, and the prop load of both of those propellants would still be continuing on the first stage. So that vent is nominal and is an indicator that we're about 20 minutes from launch.
Yeah, I just heard a call out. Stage 2 RP1 load is complete.
There we go.
Excellent. Thanks for catching the T-minus 20-minute vent, Thomas. I was talking while muted. So, I'm glad you had it locked down there. Oh, we have another merch order. Let me see if I can do this. There we go. Peter, thank you for buying some merch. They say, can you see me? Am I here? Thanks, guys. Yes, indeed, you are. Look, and it shows up, and we can see it. Thank you so much for supporting what we do. We really appreciate it. Apollo is asking if we're hiring any illustrators currently. DM me or somebody. We have an email address for this too, right? Like business@nasaspaceflight.com or something. I don't know that we're actively hiring, but send along your portfolio or something, and we'll see what we see. Let's see here. Timbo100 is asking, what time is it right now for us? Oh, hang on a second. There's a URL I'm being shown here. It's nasaspaceflight.com/join the team. So yeah, there you go. Timbo100 is asking, what time is it for us? For me, it is 3:14 in the morning. I know, Thomas, for you, it's 4:14 in the morning.
Yep.
Alex, what time is it for you?
And 14. 6 hours more than there at the Cape.
All right, not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah, I don't know about what strategy you went with, Jack. I did attempt at least a very short nap before coming out here, and I'll probably be resuming that nap post-launch, but I did get a little bit of sleep beforehand. I don't know if you went that strategy or if you just stayed up.
A little bit of both. I unintentionally stayed up, and then I napped, and now here we are. Yay!
Yeah.
Rockets. The things we do for rockets. Let's see here. Boop, boop, boop. Vaquero is saying, the suspense is killing me. What's the secret of Slick 40 excavation? What's going on with the excavation at Slick 40? If you watched our most recent video, our Cape flyover, we go into this a little bit, do we not?
We sure do. I know Alex is the one that talked about it in the video, and they were talking over my photo. But we did catch a glimpse of some work at Pad 40, and then during a press briefing today, or I guess it was technically yesterday now, ahead of the SpaceX Crew 6 mission that's coming up, NASA confirmed that they have started breaking ground on where the new crew access tower will be at Pad 40, and that'll be basically adding a second cargo and crew Dragon launch site for the Dragon 2 spacecraft over at Pad 40, so both 40 and 39A will be able to support Dragon missions. We saw some excavation, hardware and equipment out at Pad 40 when we did the flyover, so we suspected that they were potentially in work, and Alex, I think, teased in the flyover something that I think we'll go into more detail in a future video, especially once they get a little bit more work done. But there were some things visible in some SpaceX webcast views that also showed that they were getting work started on that. And the latest timeline, NASA said that they expected to perhaps be ready to support a Cargo Dragon mission first, as early as this fall, and they do that before they use it as a crew launch site. But basically, SpaceX adding some redundancy. Part of this is hedging against developmental Starship launches that might launch from 39A, and they want to mitigate any sort of risk with the crew launch access from 39A by having a second pad. Also just help SpaceX increase their Dragon launch cadence, especially if they're flying private missions through Axiom or through the Polaris program and stuff like that. I think it'll simply be beneficial even if Starship is going smoothly from over 39A. It gives them some more launch site flexibility and allows them to increase some launch cadence. So there you go.
All right, here's the part of the stream where I get to ask my own question. Let's say you're launching into space on a Crew Dragon. That alone would be amazing. But if we're going to start nitpicking here a little bit, if you'll allow me a nit to pick, if you were launching on a Crew Dragon from Slick 40, would you be bummed that you are not launching from 39A?
They're not launching from historic 39A. Well, I mean, I would argue that there's some history associated with Pad 40. It didn't launch the Apollo missions. It didn't have, shuttle heritage and stuff like that. Pad 40 did launch the first propulsive landing of an orbital class rocket, which is certainly a historic achievement in the history of spaceflight. There's also a lot of Titan III heritage from Pad 40. That's what launched from that
Cassini.
complex before Falcon 9. Cassini, yeah, Cassini launched from Pad 40 too. So like interplanetary missions have launched from 40. In fact, because the moon is not technically an interplanetary flight. Oh, I guess there were interplanetary shuttle missions that launched from 39. Never mind. But yeah, I mean, you could argue Pad 40 has some history to it, but I totally get the answer to the question, angle to the question, and I don't know, maybe there's some private astronaut who might have a preference as to, no, we want to launch from 39A. But I think NASA astronauts who are basically commuting to their actual job of being on the ISS, for example, are not going to be too picky about which launch site they're given. And I think the cargo on Cargo Dragon is pretty indifferent as well.
That's what you think. Those mice are just grumbling.
Those mice.
It's like a Pixar movie in there. Let's see here. Stephanie Shoetree, thank you for the support. They say, I've been watching y'all for 2+ years and wondering if you had any questions or suggestions on a space nerd for dummies. I want to learn more about the terms, general rocketry, inclinations, trajectories, etc. Space nerd in training. Michael is saying KSP. I would agree. Kerbal Space Program is a great way to learn, not super advanced stuff, but I understand orbital mechanics far better now than I ever did before I played KSP. And that's not to say I'm, competent at that stuff, but I understand it better than I previously did. I don't know. I'm also kind of like, side note, if you've been watching us for 2+ years and you feel like a space nerd, like you need a space nerd for dummies thing, then I feel like we're probably maybe not doing our job as well as we should. But hopefully, this is like, far more than you think you know. Just by watching us, I hope you would be able to glean some information. I don't know, Thomas, do you have any suggestions?
I mean, yeah, definitely ask if you have some terminology that you haven't heard before. Ask us in chat. We love answering those questions, and sometimes we need that reminder to go back and answer some terms that people who have watched us before or watched us a couple times might be familiar with now, but new viewers may not be. So definitely ask those questions. I can also wholeheartedly recommend KSP. I think I've learned more orbital mechanics knowledge from KSP than my actual engineering education. So full
That's
endorsement
wild.
there. But yeah, those would be my recommendations.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have any questions about something that we have said, that is what at NASASpaceflight in chat and writing your question in there is for. If we say an acronym, we might have, said that acronym and an explanation for it on dozens of streams at this point. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't ask us what it is. That's our job, is to help you guys understand what's going on and be excited about it. Alex, do you have any suggestions?
I'm very bad for suggestions, to be honest.
That's all right. We can move on.
Yeah, just follow Space's stuff and try to absorb as much knowledge as you can. That's not really Space nerd for dummies kind of thing. It's very complicated always, but you gotta have patience. It doesn't really take like 5 minutes in getting all this knowledge. But hey, there's time.
All right, hear me out. Here's what you do. You get a set of headphones, and you do the thing that for some reason was in like every sitcom in the 90s and 2000s, where you listen to our streams while you sleep, and then you'll wake up. You'll wake up with all of the knowledge. Like that's just that's how that works, right? That's how learning works. That's what TV told me.
That's what The Simpsons told me.
Yeah, right. And I'm sorry, I don't know how to say this name. Here we go. I'm gonna try. Sjerd Balfort. They say Everyday Astronaut has lots of videos that explain a lot in plain language. I can't co-sign that enough. That is a great comment. EDA Tim makes some fantastic content. So maybe like alternate while you sleep with the headphones on. One Tim stream or one Tim video, one of our videos. Just like go back and forth. I think you'd be on the path to success after that. Oh, we have another merch order. Thank you so much, Michael Steven. They say, when is the 3rd launch tower going? Is it the 3rd or the 5th? I think it's the 5th. But question taken. It is going
5th?
in... Yeah, because there's 4 plus 1.
I would argue
I think they're talking about Starship.
Oh my god. Oh, third
Oh,
launch
jeez.
tower. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Oh.
Yeah, they're probably meaning Starship there.
Thank you. I am
Not the
dumb.
Slick 40 tower.
Apparently, I need more sleep. Where is the third launch tower going?
Your guess is as good as ours.
Yeah, I wish we had an answer for that, but that's one of those things that we're sort of waiting to see and find out. And sorry for completely getting that completely wrong.
Also, I would totally argue there are 6 towers at Pad 40 because the 4 lightning
Nope,
towers,
nope,
the rocket,
nope.
and the transporter
Somebody mute
are
him.
right there.
Mute him.
And soon there's gonna be a 7th there.
And soon there'll be a 7th. Oh my goodness.
Oh my god! Like it's the old sci-fi movies where like the meteor's coming towards Earth.
Yeah.
You take
It's
your
gonna be
glasses off.
sad.
Oh my god!
It's gonna be sad because that tower might actually block the view of the rocket in this.
From this perspective?
side. Yeah, it's probably gonna be in this side of the complex. Pretty much like at 39A, if you think about it. It's on the west.
Oh yeah, because on 39A the TE is 90 degree. Yeah, actually it would be pretty much directly in front of the rocket from this perspective. Well, that's a thing I haven't thought about until just now. Thanks, Alex.
It's Alex with your morning bummer.
I changed my mind. SpaceX, take your time with that tower.
Let's see here. Maha, thanks for the support. And Robin with another merch order. Thank you so much, Robin. They say coffee sponsor. That would be nice. Like, oh man, imagine if we were sponsored by Blue Bottle Coffee. That's so good. NSF, not sponsored by Blue Bottle Coffee. Looking for some more questions. Speaking of merch, Nicholas is asking, technical question for Alex from a fellow European. Does the merch size fit true to size EU sizes, or does it fit a bit bigger? I usually find US sizing bigger than EU. Alex, what's going on with the sizing there?
Oh, I wouldn't be able to properly say because it kind of depends on what kind of clothes that you're buying. Like for shirts, I usually use something a little bit more tight, whereas for I'm wearing the heavy hoodie, by the way. That one I chose a little bit more baggy, so it's more comfy and things like that. So I'm not really a good person to ask about that because different clothes, just basically I choose different sizes just to get different comfort feels. So yeah.
Heavy hoodie, is that like a weighted blanket? All right, bad jokes over.
No,
Moving
jeez.
on.
But yeah, I will say it's probably true to the EU sizes. Yeah.
Cool. Tony Jebson is asking, when will we see the next constellation start launching seriously, and will it be Kuiper? Thomas?
Ooh, so yeah, Starlink is not the only satellite internet constellation going up. OneWeb is pretty active deployment. In fact, it's almost done, and so that's obviously not the next one. So the next big one is probably Kuiper, which kind of starts with the first Vulcan flight. There are 2 test satellites as rideshare payloads on that first flight. I think the first actual operational flight should still be later this year as well, and it'll probably be on an Atlas V. Trying to think if there's any other constellations that are coming first. Those are the big ones, though. I know there might be plans for one or multiple Chinese ones, and those off the top of my head, I wouldn't know what the timeline on that is. So, but Kuiper is coming up, at least with the test sets on Vulcan Flight 1.
Cool deal. We are just under 5 minutes and 30 seconds to go till launch. So, Thomas, at any point when you need to batten down the hatches and get ready to track, let us know.
Yeah, in a couple
We'll
minutes.
let you go. Let's see here. Michael Kurstansky, I'm sorry for butchering your name. They say, this is beautiful. I'm watching from the 5th floor balcony across the street from Canaveral Terminal 3. I have a perfect viewpoint to see the launch. Nice.
Nice.
Enjoy the view, good buddy. Thanks for joining
Of a
us.
similar
on the
view to
stream.
Fleet Cam tonight.
Nice. It's a good view. As long as
It
there's no
is.
stupid cruise ship.
Yeah, well, if you're on the
Uh,
5th floor balcony or something, you're probably above the ships. So even better view.
Neil, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. We super appreciate you for doing that, and we hope you enjoy all the cool perks that you get as part of the membership program. If you guys don't know, there is a membership program. You can sign up to it through YouTube, and you get all kinds of cool perks, including at Capcom level and above, you get Discord access. And you can pop into Discord, hang out in the KSP and gaming channel, or talk about Roundball, or you can talk about smallsat launchers, or you can talk about Starship. There's all kinds of different channels in the
You
Discord.
just picked like 4 different channels, random channels to read.
Yes, I do that every time. I feel like I do the same ones every time too. I need to diversify my funds, but but yeah, it's the Discord rules. And so at Capcom level and above, you do get that. I just want to throw that out there. Thank you so much to all of our members. We've got a slew of new ones over the last couple days. What with the Starship wet dress rehearsal and everything, and so thank you so much, everybody. All right, just under 4 minutes to go.
SpaceX just said on the official webcast that they are launching 17,400 kilograms into orbit on this mission. It is the heaviest payload that they have launched. So there you go. Now we have an official number.
Excellent.
It's worth pointing out that it's not just the heaviest for a drone ship recovery. It's the heaviest period, because the missions that went expendable for whatever reason were all because they were also going to high orbits, not just because like a heavy low Earth orbit mission. A lot of them were missions towards geostationary orbit or a GTO or something like that. And so this is the heaviest mission that SpaceX will have launched, period. And they are still recovering the first stage via drone ship.
And that is also interesting, because that will put the satellite mass, like per satellite mass, to about 320 kilograms, which is almost more than 10 kilograms than on previous calculations with previous numbers and things like that. So that's quite a bit of added mass that they have put on those satellites. Wonder what they are adding to these satellites.
Anyway, I'm going to take this minute here to hop off of comms, because I'm going to go track the camera track the camera with the rocket. Yeah, that sounds about right. Track the rocket with the camera.
There you go.
So I'm going to, out here in the field, I'm going to leave you with the studio voices of Alex and Jack, and wish you all a good launch.
Cool deal. Thank you so much, Thomas, for rolling out there and getting ready to track the camera with the rocket. I know, I said that backwards. Let's see here. We are steadily ticking down, just about 2 minutes to go. We should see another vent at the 2-minute mark, right, Alex?
Yeah, so right now they have wrapped up the LUX load on the first stage. They're about to wrap up the LUX load on the second stage. And once they do that, they have to clear all the lines on the transport director. And so that'll be another major event as well.
Excellent. And let's see. I'm not seeing it yet.
Soon. Oh, there we go. Here comes the vent.
Hooray. I'm trying to look for a question we can answer in less than a minute and a half here. Let's see. Here we go. James Atkinson is eating a bacon sandwich in my honor for breakfast. Thank you, James. They say, are there any expected testing windows in Boca currently? Not that I'm aware of. There is a road closure, I was going to say tomorrow, but it's today. And it's from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., and it is intermittent. So that usually is what they do for rolling a Starship or booster up and down Highway 4 there, at least lately. So that's probably what's going on today. But we'll have to keep our eyes and ears out for any testing windows that pop up. Of course, if Mary gets an overpressure notice for any kind of static fire testing, she will be tweeting about that, and we will know. But yeah, so far, nothing. And we are 30 seconds to go for launch of this mission. What booster is this, Alex? Is this 1067?
67, yep. On its ninth flight.
All right, 1067. Let's do this. Coming up on 10 seconds here. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. This one's for Raven. 1, 0, ignition, and liftoff of Falcon 9 B-1067 from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station at Slick 40. Go, baby, go. Let's listen into the sound of Falcon 9.
Wow.
Max Q. That's the phase of maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Passing through that now.
Now we should be seeing that plume expansion.
Gotta love that plume expansion as the rocket
See there
ascends
on the
into-
left, you can see some vapor coming there. That's actually the MVAC engine chill. So they're chilling now the pumps on the upper stage MVAC engine. And you can see some of that living out there from the interstage. Very important if you follow Starship, because there's something similar Starship, so keep an eye on that.
And there you go. You can see the plume expanding as the vehicle climbs into thinner and thinner atmosphere with lower and lower pressure. That is nominal and also very cool. Next up is going to be Miko, followed shortly by second stage start, and then fairing SEP. Let's watch and see. I guess also there's second stage SEP as well. And you can see that MVAC engine Alex was just talking about there, and good SEP.
Mm-hmm.
And we have second engine startup.
Yeah, if you see all those dangling cables and bits and things like that, those are used for that engine chill and other kind of drains and things like that.
And there's
That's why you
fairing
see.
SEP.
There we go.
And you can see the grid fins extending on the Falcon 9 first stage there on the left. Those are what helps steer the booster as it comes down into thicker and thicker atmosphere. While on the right, the second stage is powering itself into orbit.
Look at the lights.
If you were wondering what all the things that flew off the second stage engine as it ignited, those are stiffener rings. That nozzle extension on this particular variant of the Merlin rocket engine is it's quite a large nozzle, and those stiffener rings are used to I don't know, how would you describe that, Alex? Just sort of shore things up for the vibration of launch?
Yeah, it's a very delicate extension nozzle there for the MVAC. So it's very, very thin, and so it needs a stiffener there so you can keep a little bit of a stiff on the structure so it doesn't really break up.
Makes sense.
But yeah, once the thing is in space, it doesn't really need it.
All right, the next thing we're going to see here in a little bit is the entry burn on the Falcon 9 first stage. All the while, the second stage firing its single Merlin engine and pushing those 56 satellites into orbit. It's 56, right? I'm getting that right?
Yep.
I'm getting Futurama vibes.
I mean, unless they have, lost 2 in the way to orbit or something, there's still 56.
You know good 56 and 56er? That's a Futurama reference. Awesome. Well, let's continue watching this. You can see the speed on the second stage rapidly increasing, which is kind of wild. Meanwhile, the speed on the first stage is very slowly increasing because it is falling back to Earth. But once we do get that entry burn on the first stage, you will see that indicated speed rapidly scrubbed off there. It's always one of those cool things to see on launches. It's just watching the juxtaposition between the two vehicles and what exactly they're doing. You can see the altitude of the second stage is at 175 miles, or is it kilometers? It's getting cut off for me.
Yeah, I should expect that to go a little bit over 200 kilometers for the second stage.
Excellent.
And we saw the fairings pop off earlier, and sometimes we get asked, "Oh, what are they doing with the fairings?" They're using them, but they are not catching them as they used to with those nets.
The net boat.
It's more like they let it just splash down in the ocean and then they recover them. But it usually takes a long time, like 30 to 40 minutes, because they go under parachutes. So it's a slow thing.
It's pretty wild. I mean, we all kind of talk about the catch tower in Boca Chica and the one that they're building. Well, I don't know if it's a catch tower at 39A, but still. But the original crazy catch scheme that SpaceX had was the net boats.
Yep.
But unfortunately, those are no more because it was determined that they don't need them. They can just fish the fairing out of the water and reuse it, and it's not a big deal, apparently. Which always kind of blew my mind, given that, saltwater bad. And it's not like the fairing is just an inert shell. Like, there's a lot of electronics and other hardware in there.
And the contamination, like, it's being in the ocean, then you got to clean it up and all of that.
Yeah, it's wild. And their fairing reuse program has been wildly successful, so it's pretty nifty. Here we go. Coming up on entry burn. You can see those cold gas thrusters on the first stage orienting the vehicle, and bam! Engine ignition and entry burn. This is where the rocket is shielding itself with its own fire as it descends through the thicker and thicker atmosphere. Watch the speed being scrubbed off there. That is just so cool to see. And shutdown. All right, that was entry burn. Next up, we will have nearly simultaneously landing of the first stage and engine cutoff on the second stage. So that is the next milestone we are watching for here.
See, now it's because it's very dark, but usually when it's daylight, they show the views from the booster, and right after entry burn, the whole thing just slews and use the grid fins and everything to glide. It's not really technically glide, but you get what I mean, right? It steers itself all the way to the drone ship, and it's amazing to see that. I mean, it's more amazing when they do it in land, but you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
Should be coming up soon on that landing burn.
Just a moment here.
And there we go.
You can see the grid fins wiggling there to provide some control authority. What a cool shot. We should see the drone ship sort of appear out of the mists. There you are. Gosh, that looks so sci-fi. I'm never going to get tired of that. And landing of B-1067.
Landed.
That looked like a bullseye. I love how the speed is like 1, 1, 0, 1. It's like you can't decide. And we should have second engine cutoff as well. Look at that. Just a spacecraft returned from launching something into orbit. No big deal.
They just called nominal orbit insertion, so there we go.
Fantastic. Well, there you have it.
Doesn't get old.
There you have it. 56 Starlink satellites in space that were just a few minutes ago sitting on the ground at Slick 40 at Canaveral Space Force Station. Oh, that's cool to see the engine bell there still glowing red hot. Look at that!
Oh, look at that.
That is gorgeous. Limb of the Earth there illuminated. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I think during launch too, that audio, I think we were getting some sonic squeal from the VAB. It was just a beautiful launch all around. And there it is. Our favorite site, definitely DAS's favorite site, after a launch, an empty launch pad. Because that means we got to see the thing go. It's not still there, and we're not still waiting for it to launch because of a scrub or anything else. It went. And that is what we wanted to see this morning.
Ooh, boy.
Yeah, that was a nice one.
Yeah.
Those views were beautiful. Alrighty, well, with that, I think we will call it a night or morning or wherever you are around the world, whatever time it is for you. Either way, thank you so much for joining us on another NASA Spaceflight launch stream. We will, of course, be keeping our ears to the ground for any testing going on at Starbase, and you better believe any upcoming launches that we can cover, we will. So stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the like button if you like what we do. You know, all the generic YouTube stuff. But with that, Alex, thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
And I think Thomas got the boot from his audio setup. It like glitched out on him or something. So Thomas, if you can hear me, thanks for rolling out there and setting up a camera and tracking the rocket for us at an ungodly hour in the morning. And of course, I'm Jack Beyer with NASASpaceflight, the guy with the beard who loves bacon. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. We will see you nerds next time.
We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
Our chamber pressure looks good.
Traveling up. Roger, roll with Atlantis.
Water towers can fly! Yes!
Echo Delta nominal.
Flight outside SCE off. Say again, SCE off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.